Hi everybody, hope you're doing well today. This right here is not Paris, technically. Behind you is. So I'm right here at the edge of the ring road, La Périphérique, that goes around Paris on the eastern side. So that is the suburbs essentially. And I have not crossed this barrier for literally 99 days. It's been over 3 months that I personally have been in quarantine, hunkering down in my home. Paris has been open for a little while now, as you may already know. And so I thought that for episode 88, which is essentially going to be my first time entering Paris after 99 days of being home, I thought I would share that with you. And so the start of this episode is going to be me hopping on my bike, which is what you're sitting on right now, and for the first time in over 3 months, crossing the highway into the city. It feels a little bit strange to start an episode next to a dirty, noisy highway, but that is the theme. So I trust that you're all filing in here for episode 88. Those of you who know I've been growing out my quarantine coif, you can see it's pretty legit and still going strong. So for this episode, it's the sort of grand retour, or I'm using French actually. It's the grand return to Paris, le grand retour, as it were. So I live out there in the burbs just next to the city, and of course as a tour guide, my normal life used to be coming in here almost every day to prepare these videos, to give my walking tours, and I haven't been able to do that for the last 99 days. So this is going to be pretty fun. I just thought I'd share it with you, and not only are we going to cross the border into Paris, but we're going to explore an area that's called the countryside in Paris, La Campagne à Paris, and hopefully it'll be a discovery for a lot of you. And without further ado, let's hop on the bike here and make our way into the 20th arrondissement, which is where we're going to be today. That's the suburb of Bagnolet into Paris. So let's do it. I'm going to grab you here. Oh, and by the way, safety first. I hope I don't sound too muffled, but here we go. Should I put one on you guys? No. So let's do this. Hello everybody, so that's where you were. That's my new bike, relatively new. Now I have done this before successfully, biking and live streaming at the same time. So let me get situated here, it should be fine. Should be all good. Here we go. Hey Peggy Baker, thank you. Peggy Baker just sent me a donation, a super chat, which you can do by clicking on the $sign next to the comment section. I encourage anyone to do that if you want to help support this project a little bit. That is the highway, that is the ring road that serves, let me show you, let me stop and show you. That's our border of Paris on the eastern side. Thanks everybody for joining me, episode 88 if you're just arriving. We are leaving the suburbs and entering Paris for the first time in literally, I counted them, 99 days since I have returned to my favorite city in the world. So we are on our way to the quote-unquote countryside of Paris as it's named. I'm good to cross here. And we have done it, folks. We have entered Paris. Hey Sharon, I can see you there. She says it's great to see you, Corey. Kate says bienvenue. Thank you very much. We'll get to our destination pretty quick actually, because the 20th arrondissement is just inside of this eastern border. Cute little park here that I will show you in a minute. Feels good to be back. This is literally the first time that I'm making my way back into the city. Let's just pause for a second and I'll show you this name of the park first. Hopefully that's coming through. Square Séverine from 1933. And I'll give you an idea of what that looks like, at least from the outside. Ooh, someone else just sent me a super chat. I gotta check out who that was. So this is the entrance of Square Séverine. Beautiful, huh? On a day like today. Weather's gorgeous, it's like 75 degrees, partly sunny. That was David Dubois who sent me the tip. Thank you very much, David, I appreciate that. I really do appreciate it. Awesome. So, let me get back in the saddle. And this park is big. Definitely worth a look in another episode. You'll forgive me if I can't read your comments at the moment. Oh, thank you, Heather M. That's really nice of you. Really appreciate that. So here we are. This is the edge of the city. There's a McDonald's. But don't worry, it's gonna get real pretty real soon. We're stopped for a tram here, as you can see. The tramway lines are always really nice and green. Randy says the traffic's back. Yeah, traffic's back. The cafes are sort of half full. A little bit of congestion here. Excuse me, kind sir. Thank you. Our destination today is actually at the top of this hill that will be more apparent in a moment. Again, if you're just joining, we're in the 20th arrondissement. I just entered Paris for the first time in a long time. And you're going to see right away that this is the sort of the backside of the neighborhood that we're going to see. La Campagne à Paris, the countryside in Paris. Look at that. So we got to get up there. We got to get to the top of the hill. Oh, I can see the super chats coming in, but I can't see who sent them. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. I'm feeling good. I mean, I guess I should describe a little bit about the emotions of what it feels like to finally come back. I'm not super emotional. I mean, I don't have tears in my eyes, but it feels like slipping into nice, comfortable slippers again. You know what I mean? There are staircases, if I can show you that. Isn't that beautiful? So a lot of staircases that will lead you up. Let me focus, expose a little bit better if I can. There you go. If you can make that out, there are several of those. Having trouble keeping this mask on. The masks are fine, except when you start gabbing on camera, and then they always manage to slip down my face, but I'm not complaining. So yeah, beautiful place to live, my goodness. Right next to that noisy highway, but once you get in here, you're gonna see, you don't even realize that all of that hustle and bustle is right outside your doorstep. It's very quiet, which is why we love Paris, because there are several neighborhoods like that. We're just about there. I don't quite have enough room here. We're gonna have to one-handed uphill. It's not gonna happen. So we're just gonna wait for this car to move. It'll allow me to adjust my mask again. See what everyone's up to. Hey Sherry Firestone, I can see you there with the chat. And we've done it. We're just about there. Look at that beautiful structure in the center of the screen. And here we are. So this is just the entrance, but to give you an idea, very leafy, beautiful. Thank you, Jamie. I see that super chat that came in. Really appreciate that. Peggy Baker, when she sent her tip, she said, "I'm so thrilled for you, Corey, to be back in the saddle, but where is your horse?" Don't worry, I got a horse. Got my electric horse. So anyway, we're gonna go down there a little bit later. I think what I want to do is park my bike, so we're gonna walk the rest of the way. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you all a view, sort of like that, while I lock up my bike, as you will see. Hopefully you're enjoying the view. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves. I am using the wireless mic today, which is why I can do this freely, and hopefully you can still hear me. That's the idea. One more lock. I never put just one lock, it's always at least two. And then we'll grab this for good measure. I think we're good there. Let's do this. Mask back on. David Dubois said that if he were here, he would be watching my bike for me. That's very sweet of you. So here we go. 210 of you. Good, a good showing today, for sure. I'm not in the mood to bother anybody today, so I'm gonna try to film from far away and just give you an idea of the beauty of this neighborhood. It's really, really lovely. Bonjour. Thanks, everybody. So episode 88. After I counted the home edition episodes I did at home under lockdown, and there were 11 of them. So thank you to all of you that tuned in for some or all of those 11 home edition episodes, and hopefully many future episodes can be back in Paris. As I said, we've been out of lockdown for a little while, and I took a little bit of extra time myself personally before I came in. La Campagne à Paris. Now we'll get into the history of this in a minute. Let me catch some shade under this tree. That's a nice little comp. Something like that. We're back to the Paris meditation, folks. It feels good to be here. Thank you. So I do have just a couple of images to share with you. This one right here, this is Paris, of course. And this is where we are, the little red marker. So you can see the yellow autoroute that goes around and essentially is the border of the city. We were there, that's what we just passed. And then I can zoom in a little bit for you and show you closer. So you can see Père Lachaise cemetery there, for example. And if you look all the way to the left of your screen, you'll see Les Ateliers de Paris and, Atelier des Lumières. And a lot of you know that as the place where you see projections of Klimt and Van Gogh and whatnot. I know a lot of you have been there. So we're close to that, Atelier des Lumières. We're close to Père Lachaise cemetery, and you can see we're right on the edge of town. Let me show you the tree that we were under, by the way. It's gorgeous. That's where we came from. been a little while since I used all this equipment, so far so good. Almost feels like starting again for the first time. Everything feels familiar but new. So that's where we were. Beautiful. So these streets here, you can see Elizabeth Diamond saying, so peaceful, so quiet. Yeah, considering how close we are to the périphérique. So this here wraps around, it's a loop. So we're gonna make that loop for starters. And of course, a lot of dream homes here. A lot of families. Let me get into the story. You know, there's always a bit of history that we like to chew on while we're enjoying the scenery. In the Napoleon III emperor days, when Baron Haussmann was tearing up all those famous boulevards and avenues, you all know the deal. This right here, this area was actually I should lower my voice. I get excited, you know me. This right here was a huge gypsum mine. And it was basically a huge pit where they would excavate stones with tunnels underground and whatnot. And then they took a lot of the rubble, the stones and the gravel and the cement that Baron Haussmann was digging up to make the nearby avenues and boulevards in this area. And they took all that Haussmannian rubble and just dumped it in and filled in the huge pit, the huge gypsum quarry. They planted a bunch of trees here because the ground, when they filled in that quarry, was very unstable. So they planted a bunch of trees whose roots were meant to solidify and strengthen the ground. But then for a long, long time, nobody wanted this plot of land. It was kind of abandoned and left on the outskirts of the city. It was impossible to sell. Nobody was interested in buying it. But then in 1906, it was purchased by an association that called themselves La Campagne à Paris, the countryside in Paris. And there were a few founders of that initiative, and their names are actually the names of these streets that we're on, so they've been commemorated. This is just a little side alley that leads to that staircase that we saw. Lisa Chorney says, this is so idyllic, I can't even stand it. Thank you, Andrew Miles, for that super chat. I can't even keep up with the super chats. You're all so lovely. I can see Leslie. She says, you're showing us yet another gorgeous spot we would have never thought to visit. Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate that. And then Andrea, I owe you a reading of your comment. She says, thank you for taking us back to our favorite city. Sorry, I had to scroll down. Okay, so that's where we were riding our bike along. So to get back to the story, in 1906, that association purchased this land, and their idea was to combat the housing crisis in the early 20th century, particularly for working class families in Paris. There was a real crisis. And so what they did, as is so common with so many other outer arrondissements that we've explored, these little villages, they were built as social housing projects, as a way to give the working class of Paris, the blue-collar families, a more dignified and healthy and hygienic place to live, rather than these eastern suburbs that were made up of shanty villages, not just the east, the north, and the south as well. Shanty villages and hovels. So this was built as low-income housing, this neighborhood. 89 houses, exactly, 2 stories each, because you don't really have a choice, just like all those other areas that we've seen. If you think of previous episodes like La Mosaïa, Square-Montsouris, the Petite Alsace and the Butokai area, we've explored more and more of these neighborhoods, and they all had the same MO. They were unwanted plots of land, but they were building housing projects that were for affordable housing. This is beautiful. Before I forget, I wanted to show you the wisteria is coming in again, which, by the way, I didn't even know was possible. I'm so stupid about plants that I thought it was done. I thought that the wisteria came once in the spring and then it would be over. But you can see here it's starting to bloom over there as well. So that association, La Campagne à Paris, it took them 20 years to finish this area and to actually give these people their homes to live in. One reason it took 20 years is because of a little disturbance known as World War I, of course. But 20 years later, they managed to inaugurate this. And I have one other image that I want to share with you right here. This is literally the inauguration on these streets in 1926. Love it. Boy, did people get dressed up back then. In fact, some of the very lucky owners of these buildings nowadays are the direct descendants of the first families that lived here. Now, this is going to be fun. Let me zoom just a little bit. And I want you to excuse my equipment that comes into the right-hand side of the screen. I can't really fix that today, but I just wanted to give you a better look at this beautiful blue and salmon colored house. Interesting combination. I talked last episode about stopping and being in the moment, so I don't want to rush us today. Just want to enjoy all these little details. There we go. Speaking of blue, I love how they're not afraid of color in these areas. Yesenia is digging the color combo. Thanks, Yesenia, for being here. Heather Jackson's dreaming about having a cafe creme on top of one of the balconies. So yeah, some of the direct descendants from 1926 of those original families are living here, and as is the case with so many of these social housing initiatives, they were meant to be affordable at the beginning, but then nowadays, of course, they end up very, very expensive, only for the lucky few. Hey Keith, how's it going there, buddy? Keith has a good point. He says each house is unique. It perhaps wasn't uncommon back then, Keith, that the families would purchase their lots ahead of time and could have their own architects and their own designs. FYI, just a technical thing, I am forced today because of a glitch to manually focus each time. So that is something to keep in mind if anything is a little bit out of focus or exposed badly. It's just me trying to manually handle everything. I don't want to film that guy and his kid all too much, but Andrea's digging the dark blue door. Yeah, the color is spectacular. Very, very quiet and serene here. Previous times I've seen a lot of photographers here. In fact, sometimes I think you never see a lot of people, but you almost see more photographers than locals on the streets. But today it's even quiet for that. So yeah, two-story houses because the ground just simply isn't strong enough, very similar to Montmartre. So even if they wanted to build an apartment complex up here, they just physically wouldn't be able to do it. Let's get into the shade here for a little bit of a better exposure. There we go. I mean, come on. Doesn't it feel good to be here, folks? Doesn't it feel good to be back? It feels good that I'm able to offer you this experience. Of course, that's what this series was designed to do in the first place, was to bring you live onto the streets. And of course, I couldn't do that for a while. Leslie T says when she comes back to Paris, she's definitely walking around here. Oh, thanks, Mimi Costello. She says she's loving this so much. Keep in mind, I couldn't come through here and prep and check the cell signal and whatnot. I had to kind of just cross my fingers and hope and have faith that when I showed up here for the first time today, everything would go according to plan, and so far so good. I like this composition, but let's get more pink into the corner there. And maybe get rid of the green trash can. There we go. That's what we deserve. Thanks, Keith, for the super chat donation. I appreciate that. Sherry Firestone says, welcome back and thanks for venturing out. You got it, Sherry. All right, where else can we go here? Again, we're just making the loop, making the loop. That's a great door and awning right there, too. Kelly says she's ready to move and she's looking for people to come along. Okay, here the door's open, but I just gotta show you this. Thank you, Barbara Keeney Harper, sending that tip, that donation. I appreciate it, everybody. You all have been so supportive during this difficult period. I mean, it's difficult for everybody in different ways, but as you can imagine, it's difficult for the travel industry that all but shut down. So you all have really helped me to continue surviving and making a living off of my passion just by showing up every week for these episodes. And I really appreciate that. You can see it's either trash day or recycling day. Let's make our way over here. I don't want to film the people in the car there. I don't want to upset them. But we'll take a look down this staircase here. Oh, there's some good color here. Several staircases you can use to access this area. And you notice we're on a hill, which was so common for all of those gypsum and limestone quarries. They were often dug out of an existing hill. That was the same for Montmartre and Montsouris in the 14th arrondissement and the Butte-aux-Cailles, and over here as well, Belleville, etc. Those neighborhoods are always very hilly because it was easier apparently to mine the stone that they needed from an existing hill. Heather Jackson says, are you sure you're not in Montmartre? Hey Sharon Peterson, it's great to have you here. Sharon makes a good point that the fact that the streets curve really adds another aspect of charm and mystery and discovery. I've said this before in my tours, I'm just in love with any street that I can't see the end of. And we are going to go down this street here in a moment. This is a good example here. The two street names here are names of the founders of that association that has the same name as this neighborhood today, La Campagne à Paris, the countryside in Paris, which is a wonderful name for it. Quite like this. I don't think it will be bothering anybody by zooming in on this. So 98 houses originally, all unique as you can see, built of brick or a stone known as meulière, and I'll mention meulière, I'll tell you more about that in a second. Single family homes, 2 stories each. And we're coming up on a nice little set of flowers here. I do not know what these are called, but I'm sure someone can help me out there in the comments. We have a lot of knowledgeable folks out there in the audience. But that's a heck of an entrance to come home to. You'd be so nice to come home to. So this stone here is known as meulière. And it's a stone that is very, very old throughout many regions of France, and it's a quite common building material. Meulière in English is known as burr stone, spelled B-U-R-R or B-U-H-R. And I learned that in the 18th and 19th centuries, American farmers would pay top dollar to import French Meulière or French burr stone. And apparently this kind of stone was considered very, very good for making millstones to grind wheat. And that burr stone, particularly French burr stone, apparently people would pay top dollar to get it imported into the US because that something about that French stone just ground the wheat just right. So on top of all the other things that are better in France, maybe you could lump in that burr stone, also known as meulière. Almost sounds like Molière, the famous playwright. See a lot of comments of people saying they can't wait to get back to the city. I hear you. I hear you, I hear you. Boy, these folks, they've got a little smart car that they can park right in the front. So these houses usually have as you've seen, a very, very modest courtyard in the front, but they do have small private gardens in the back of most of these as well. Hey, Christina Consolet, it's great to have you. She says there are so many Zen moments here, some meditation moments for us. Margaret says she's loving this area. I'm glad. Look at this. Actually, I'm going to allow myself to zoom in here. The audio might cut out just for 1 second as I zoom in. Thank you, dear Nancy Brisson, who just sent a super chat. Some more wisteria blooming again, which I did not expect. This is a cute spot too. Thank you, Ellen Corradini. She says, thanks for bringing me back to my soul home. What a great way to put it. Wow, look at this. Look at that. Can you make it out with a bench? I mean, that's literally my happy place right there. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. We'll be finishing this walk in a moment. However, it won't be finished for my Patreon subscribers. For my Patreon members, I'm going to do an extension of this walk so we can remain in this area and remain together. And that'll happen over in our Facebook group, the Cafe Chats group. If you're not a Patreon member and you'd like to become one, there's a link in the description of this video. Actually, let me do this for you. I want to come down. We'll go down the stairs and then just come up for sort of to give you the feeling. So this right here is a street that we're going to explore during the tour extension for my Patreon supporters, but we're not going to do that quite yet. I just want to give you the impression of if you were to access, a lot of people, the residents, access this area via one of these several staircases. So let's say you're coming back to your home. Honey, I'm home. Lisa Chorney says, I don't want to leave. I hope y'all remembered, if your internet connection is decent, that I hope you put the settings on YouTube to 1080p, the maximum resolution. Danielle Molden had a good point. She said, sigh, everywhere you look, it's beauty. we are back to that fork in the road where we began. I'll give the overall view and then we'll finish up this episode. Ah, bonjour. I was gonna buy those boys are selling crepe, but I have literally no money. It's so bad, I would have bought a crepe or two off of them. Wish I had some cash with me. So I don't want to bother those boys by filming them, but I do just want to finish the view of La Campagne à Paris, 20th arrondissement, right on the eastern edge of town. The countryside in Paris. Thank you, Raquel. She just sent me a chat saying, keep these gorgeous videos coming. Yeah, you know, the home editions were great, but it feels good to be back on the streets. And each week, come back here. If you're new to this, 4 p.m. Paris time every Saturday, which is 10 a.m. Eastern. And you can do the math and figure out when I'm live, or you can come back and watch the replays. So I'm doing these every Saturday. The idea is if you can't bring yourself to Paris, I'm going to bring it to you. And on that note, let me say officially goodbye. Hopefully you can see me. I know I'm backlit, but we did it. Number 88 is in the can. Thanks everybody. If you want to support me on Patreon, if you think this project is worthwhile and you want to help me out, you can find a link in the description. You can follow my Instagram. You can book a tour with me. I'm not going to be doing walking tours very soon, obviously, but certainly for next year, for the end of this year in 2021, you can find a link to contact me for that. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, please go over to our cafe chat group and in Facebook. And in about 5 minutes, we're going to continue this walk. And I'm going to go, hopefully, double check that my bike is still there. So thanks everybody. I appreciate you joining me here. Come back next week for another neighborhood and some more facts and whatnot, and hopefully some more beautiful visuals. All right, take care. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.